Welcome to the Flower Essence Podcast, and join us on an exploration of the healing wisdom of flowers.
With combined decades of experience in the study and practice of flower essence therapy, I, Kathleen Aspens, and co-host Rokana Feld guide you to reconnect to nature with these potent vibrational remedies. Welcome back to the Flower Essence Podcast. I'm Kathleen Aspens, and I'm here with Rokana Feld, and today we're going to be talking about the heart. So many flower essences can be incredibly helpful for all the issues resolving around our hearts, around our emotions, feelings, things like grief. There's so many topics that are directly related to the heart. We're going to start off with some issues about the heart chakra, talking specifically about how to work with that. And I know, Ro, that you've been really focusing on that in your study of Ayurvedic medicine.
Hey, Kathleen. Yeah, it is something I've been learning a lot more about recently, and I'm excited to start bringing more of that perspective in my practice. With the heart chakra, there's 7 major chakras of energy centers in the body, for those who aren't familiar with that. And the heart is the one in the middle. It brings together the lower chakras and the upper chakras. And it really is the center of our being, sort of the still point. It's called the anahata, is the Sanskrit word for the heart chakra. And, a lot of people think about the heart as a center for love and relationships, and it is, but it's not the sort of sexual love that we might think about. It is more of it. It's not dependent on outside stimulation, and it's more about experiencing a state of being within. So it's about bringing love and compassion to whatever comes into our field and cultivating that, rather than it being something that is about desire and will. So this energy center can be closed or too wide open, and we want to strive for balance with it. When it's closed, we can experience breathing, like sort of a constricted energy in our chest center, and we can energetically think about it in terms of like the lungs and breathing issues. Also, grief, really lives in the heart. And, if you think about when you feel grief and you kind of hunch over and you kind of close in to protect your heart, or if you've experienced a loss, that's some of the ways that energy center is, manifesting in, with our whole body physical energy. And unchecked, it can result in or feed some physical issues that might be going on with the body, also circulatory issues, etc. So that being said, at the end, I'm going to do a little heart breath visualization, and stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, the flower essences are just wonderful to be working with this energy center, and especially the roses. And I know that you have made quite a few rose flower essences for your Flora of Asia line, and I've made quite a few, and I can't wait to talk about and get into more depth about what the different roses are and how they can help the energy center of the heart chakra and some of the emotional issues that come with that energy center.
This is a great topic of talking about the roses, and also the rosaceae in general. A lot of them have an affinity to the heart, but certainly the family of roses are really important. And these are the roses, the Rosa genus that we're talking about primarily. The first one that I always, the originator, Dr. Bach, made a wild rose, which is the Rosa canina of hedgerows in England. And it has a very pale pink color, and it's routinely used. The hips are used for herbal medicine purposes as a vitamin C supplement in the cold seasons. But the flowers are this beautiful cloud of pink. And Dr. Bach talked about the wild roses being helpful for heartbreak and despair and loss. And so kind of that first initiation of the rose into the flower essence world was really speaking to topics of the heart. And since then, many other essences of different roses have been created, and we can really flesh out this whole topic of surrounding care of the heart, let's say, and working with the area, whether you're thinking about it from the chakra system, whether you're thinking about it more philosophically of matters of the heart, or even if you're thinking about it from Chinese medicine, where the heart is an incredibly important organ system, not just physiologically, but also for the health of the whole body. If the heart spirit is disturbed, if the Shen is disturbed, nothing else works properly. Your whole health is impacted by a disturbed Shen. One of the things that I think is really interesting from the Chinese medicine perspective about the heart is it's supposed to be an open and spacious and calm environment. And I think that there's a real difference there in maybe a more Western idea of what the heart should be, which is, maybe warm and open and, loving. And yet from this sort of classical Chinese medicine perspective, it's a space that allows emotion to flow through without disturbing its integrity. So you can feel great joys or great sorrows, but they only disturb your Shen when they become so much that they throw you off. So there's an interesting quality there that your heart just can become so spacious that you can experience everything, feel everything, and allow it to continue flowing through without it throwing you off. And I see that as being a really interesting aspect of developing your heart's resilience and developing your heart's capacity or spaciousness when working with these rose essences and other essences as well. Do you have a take on that?
Yeah. And it's interesting that you use the word spaciousness a few times because the heart chakra is ruled by the air element. Do you know if there's an equivalent element for the heart in TCM?
That's a really good question, and I don't think I can pull that right out. I mean, it's a fire element, but it's not like fire. So it's an interesting concept. But yeah, it's. I think essentially it's considered to be part of the fire quadrant, or not quadrant. It's 5 parts, but the funny thing is that for the heart in Chinese medicine, the element that damages it is heat. So it's the warmth of fire, but not heat. So there's kind of an interesting ground in there.
Yeah. I always like comparing those two modalities, the Chinese medicine and the Ayurvedic philosophies. Out of everything around, and I like that we have both this perspective in our work. They're two ancient philosophies that have really stood the test of time. And there's so many similarities just with some slightly different terms, or, it's just a little of a different take on pretty much the same ideas when I compare them. So I do like kind of matching them up and seeing what matches and what doesn't. And when it doesn't, there's usually a reason that makes sense from what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, you're right. Because it's I see it as like a different lens to view the world through. And so you might just be taking a shift 90 degrees to the right and then look through a slightly different lens at a different angle of it. But the phenomenon we're describing is the same. Mm-hmm. So it's intriguing to see how those two things are similar and yet a little different. And sometimes it's a matter of if you talked about it enough and get into it enough, you'd find that they're really tightly aligned, even though our short descriptor of what element it is might be different in the two different systems.
Yeah.
But we could start talking about some of the roses. I guess the first topic of, why are roses affiliated with the heart if you look at it from sort of a Western mythological approach, you're certainly looking at they've always been affiliated with love. They've always been affiliated with the center. If you look at it from Chinese medicine, the summer is the season of the heart organ system. And so there is a definite affinity there with summer blooming plants, of which roses are certainly summer blooming. So there's an affiliation there. Is there an affiliation in Ayurvedic medicine around roses in the heart?
Well, Ayurvedic medicine is primarily about managing the constitutional types of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and it classifies plants in terms of their herbal energetics. The chakras are primarily managed through meditation and life breath practices called pranayama. That being said, rose is a well-known flower of love and devotion, and so it's used in devotional practices.
Interesting.
Herbally, it's classified as sweet and cooling, and it's used to reduce pitta or overheated conditions, which I find is interesting since you mentioned the heat being detrimental to the heart in TCM. And in Ayurveda, I believe there's an affinity of the heart with the emotions and with the Pitta constitution. There's so much in all cultures that use rose. And, it has a lot of, it's been associated with love, the whole time. I mean, that's not anything new that your corner florist made up for Valentine's Day. It's
commercialized versions thereof.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's been used in love magic, and it's been used to signify love, and the different colors of the roses have different meanings going back a very long time. So it'll be interesting to explore that.
Yeah, let's dive into that concept of the colors as being affiliated with different topics. The essences that I've made from my Flora of Asia roses are in a range of colors. They're all species roses, so none of them have been bred by humans to have whatever characteristics. These are all right out of the wild characteristics. So the colors that they have are integral to the species. And I think that's an interesting element there, because the cultivated roses, the roses that are hybridized and created by humans, are oftentimes created and selected to have a certain type and shape of flower and color and all of those things. So I'm really interested on your perspectives on this as well, because when I'm working with a plant, working with a rose to find out what message it has and what healing qualities it has, the color is not something that I look at first as to deriving a meaning or intention behind the plant. So it's kind of interesting to me when I meet with people who maybe focus on that more, because it's just not where I'm coming from. And I find that different colors might fall into different categories if I look back at them and figure out kind of, after they told me what they were all about, I might go, yeah, okay, that might relate more to this aspect or facet of the heart. But do you have a perspective on that?
Well, yeah. When I first started making flower essences, I let the flowers tell me what they were about, and it became a pattern that I recognized over time that seemed to match up with basically color theory, color magic theory, where white is more about purity and pure love and purification, and pink being more about self-love and self-care, and then going through to red, and that being a more divine love. So it sort of matches up with the color theory that I've learned about. But with the roses, I've noticed that also wild versus cultivated has a difference. And now I haven't worked with species roses other than the wild roses, the California wild rose and the sweetbriar rose. And of course, used the Bach wild rose, but I haven't, made a Rosa canina essence. So the wild roses, they're very different to me than pretty much all the other roses. And I feel like part of that's the color, part of that's the signature with the 5 petals and the simple 5 petals, meaning there's no layers of petals, right? And the fact that they're wild. Now you're working with a lot of wild species, but the wild, the ones that I've seen basically popping up in the middle of cow pastures in Sonoma County, and it's so surprising. Here you have a pasture with pretty much not much else on it except for really vigorous thistles and things that the cows won't eat. Those are the only things that will make their way or have some longevity in that pasture after the cows or other animals have had their way. And the blackberries, the wild rose, it's a hedge. It has this amazing physicality to it, and it to me has more affinity with our physical, the physical aspects of our heart. In the emotional, sort of earthy emotions, the depression and the apathy and the just not having that sense of loving the self. I've noticed that with the sweetbriar rose, and then also that's what the FES California wild rose and the Bach wild rose, they're all used in that similar fashion. Have you noticed that correlation with those types of roses?
Really interesting thought. I never articulated it that way, but I think that you're right. From my perspective, I'm in alignment with what you're saying. It's like, oh, that's very interesting because I hadn't thought about it that way, but that is also my experience when you run it through that filter. So I guess I love your idea about the white roses. One of the roses that I use over and over and over and over again is the Lady Banks rose. And that's a wild white rose. It has the most perfect little 5-petaled flowers. And to your point of the singleness nature of a wild rose, the roses that we often see in our gardens have been cultivated for what's called doubling, which means that there are multiple layers of petals in there. So when you see those big, ruffly, fabulous cabbage roses and such, those are not something that are going to occur in the wild. You're only ever going to see the 5 petals in the roses. So I think that's an interesting designation we know that to not be a wild trait. It's a human cultivated trait. The Lady Banks rose has this incredible quality of helping you with your self-love and self-caring and self-acceptance. And it has this incredibly pure quality that I just think of as the keywords are just unconditional self-acceptance, that you are just fine the way you are. And I don't know about you, but I need to hear that message kind of a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And so you've worked with the eglantine rose, the sweetbriar. That's a white flowered usually, isn't it? It sometimes has a little hint of pink, doesn't it?
It looks very much like the California wild, the Rosa californica. In fact, when I wasn't sure what the difference was when I first started working with it and was able to learn how to identify the differences. And it has a unique, so the flower looks almost exactly. It's got that light pink 5-petal signature. And it has also very large rose hips that can be used medicinally. And I lost my train of thought there. What was the question?
I just remember from the Rosa eglantine that the foliage smells like
That's
apples.
it.
It's when you crush it, it just like, oh, it smells so good. So that's always been a distinguishing characteristic in my experience with that particular
Thank you.
rose.
Exactly where I was.
So cool. That's okay. We can share a mind.
Yes, we need to share our mind today. Thank you.
No worries. I know my thoughts sometimes wander off too. Continuing on the white flowering topic, it's one of the ones that I work with. The wingthorn rose is a white flowering rose as well. And the wildly distinguishing characteristic of this one is this one only has 4 petals, which is extremely unusual in the Rosaceae. They all have 5 petals except for this little dude. And it's such an interesting rose because it is just it so encourages you to get on with things. It blooms really, really early. It's probably starting to bloom right now, sometime mid-February, and it goes into hip by May, when all the other roses are just thinking about blooming. So it has this energetic quality of like, let's get on with this thing. So I use it with clients who've just kind of been hung up on something for a really long time to really help them kind of like, let's change this story. Let's move on. We can do this. We can get over where we're stuck on something. That's the wingthorn rose. It's really a cool rose.
That's really interesting. I did not know that there was a 4-petaled rose.
It's very surprising. It does its own thing. It's definitely Rosaceae, but it's 4 petals. So that's something kind of crazy.
I just wanted to briefly mention a white that I have, and I don't know at all what kind of rose it is, except it's a climber, and it is growing here in the Cazadero Forest, right up a redwood tree. That it's probably a good 30 feet up that tree, and might be bad for the tree. I'm going to have to probably do something about that if I want the redwood to thrive. But it's amazing when it blooms because it basically puts white flowers all through a redwood tree. And then over the course, I think it probably blooms in May. And yes, I made a May Day flower essence with it, and it sprinkles its little petals. It's a very small flower. They just rain down, like confetti as the breeze moves through the spring, and it's magical. It really is. So I have no idea what kind of rose.
I'm pretty sure that that's a Lady Banks rose.
Really?
That's probably the cultivated. I forget what the cultivar name of the white one is. Lutea it's Rosa Banksii lutea is the golden one, which I'm sure you've seen growing over eating trees as well. And then I forget what this species of the white one is, but it's a multiple petaled. It's doubled. It's not it's not 5 single petals. It's very, very doubled, like a little puffball, and very fragrant. Usually, the yellow one does not have a fragrance, but the white one does, and it will definitely climb straight up a tree and envelop it. And it's not usually harmful. Roses are, unless they're just literally too much weight for a tree. A rose is not a strangler. It has the quality of what we call thorns. Sort of typically we call them thorns, but technically they're called prickles. And the way that the rose adapts to climbing and rambling is it basically has grappling hooks. Those prickles are grappling hooks. So it sends up a cane and then grips a hold of something with those thorns. And that's how it helps itself climb, rather than a vine that twines like wisteria. And that can definitely strangle a plant, strangle a tree. But roses generally don't really harm the tree unless it's just a literal structural issue, rather than it's not going to damage it by choking it out.
Well,
so
that's really good to know. Yeah. Yeah. And the energetics from that, to me, I experienced a lot of lightness of being and releasing heaviness, clearing my mind. I just felt really washed clean by that experience of making that essence. So I sort of attribute that to the white and also the height that it just it
Mm.
it grows so high if it has something to climb.
Perspective,
Yeah.
right? It offers a perspective. Yeah, so that's the cultivated version of the ladybanks that I make. So that's kind of cool that we've experienced both of them from slightly different angles.
Very cool.
And so we could slide down the color scale towards the warmers. Sort of the pinks
Yeah.
are sort of my next stop, and we could talk about how different types of pink roses, and clearly the California wild rose, and even the Dr. Bach's wild rose has traces of pink. And I would be thinking the pinks as a group are more working with the more emotions, the hurt, maybe more hurt emotions in the heart. Do you think that that's where you're coming at?
Yeah, definitely. The nursing a heartache or heartbreak. One thing I heard about the heart chakra, its color associated with it is green, but it also has pink as the opposite side. So the green can be looked at as giving love, and the pink can be looked at as receiving love. So these pink roses can help in receiving love, whether that's from someone else or from yourself. And I like that a lot because it really works with the self-care, self-love, self-compassion theme that we see with some of these wild rose flower essences.
Cool. That fits right in with what I've made is the China rose, and that has a beautiful, very soft pink flower. And the keyword of the China rose is the boundaries. It's giving open-hearted, but don't let somebody walk over you. Roses are really good at setting boundaries. They're really good at enforcing a boundary. You don't walk through a rose, do you? Nobody does that without getting scratched, but pretty well. So they're effusively open and sharing and giving, yet with a nice, solid, clear space. You don't get to step on my roots. You don't get to run over me. You don't get to crush me. I'm going to hold my space. And I think that particularly that rose, in my experience, has done a great job of helping people to manage those issues around holding one's space. Do you have some pink roses, some warm pink roses that you work with?
Yeah, I have some others that, again, I am not, identifying some of these hybrids that have been gone to, back to wild or not. It's very hard. I don't have that horticulture background that you have. But when I started trying to identify roses, it's one of the harder plants to figure out for me anyway. So I have a pink at this property that I'm at now. There's a pink climber that also goes up some of the trees, just not as far as that white one, and a low growing one that's more like a centifolia from what I can gather. And those two are also, working with tending the heart. I think that pink climbing, it seems very fragrant, and it's a delicate light pink. It's got a grandmotherly energy. It feels like it'll take care of your heart and give you a little buffer of pink light, like cushioning you from grief and fear and anxiety. The other one is a darker pink, more blushing, or a true pink, and it's got a lot of petals. I thought it might be in a cabbage rose or something like that, but I really am not sure. I'm going to have you come over and help me identify these roses. But I saw
it
that
is a tough thing, and there's a whole group of people that rescue these old roses from old farmsteads, and it's such an interesting thing that some of these roses have been brought back from relative extinction through people who really get into rescuing old and vintage roses.
cool. And
Sidebar.
yeah, and it's fascinating because they have such, when I've done research online, there's these lineages of where they came from, these hybrids, and how they come down from the ancient varieties. So it's really fascinating. So the darker pink rose, I felt like it was more of a blossoming, that it's sort of this intermediate expression from, if you think starting out with the white and the purity of that, which eventually culminates into this, full dark red of what I call a Christ ray sort of energy. That pink, as this blushing pink, is sort of about becoming yourself. It's sort of the energy of new love, and that kind of thing. So it's just that intermediate expression, and that's sort of what I saw.
Interesting. Yeah, but it's so cool how these coloration variations and then the spirit of the plant can kind of show up in healing different facets of these interrelated topics. The next one that I'm thinking of is my Wilmot's rose, which leans a little bit more towards the magenta. And so it has this quality of like some of the magenta flowers, they help to repattern broken places. They help to re-knit the field of what's been injured and heartbroken in this case. It has, once again, you're using that term grandmotherly. It also has a very grandmotherly quality to it as well. It's just that warm, compassionate hug type of energy. And that's kind of cool that you're seeing it. The more it gets into the warmer pinkers, then you get a little bit more along those lines. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And then I don't know what about some, like that one pink rose felt very grandmotherly to me, and then the other pink rose felt very youthful. So it's great to work with these Devic energies from the plants. And there's another sort of midway color that I have. I call it a peach rose, and it's probably a floribunda, but it's pink and yellow. It's a double as far as the leaves go, or the petals. And that one has a really different energy, bringing in that yellow. Yellow is about joy, and there's energy combined with that sweet, caring, kind of innocent of the pink. And to me, that culminates in this outward action of bringing the pink out. Yellow, of course, is that color of the third chakra and our identity and how we are out in the world. So combined with that pink, the color signature of this rose spoke as compassionate action. So taking that compassion and putting it out in the world in some sort of action, working well with like new beginnings and new projects. And optimism is a theme from this rose. It told me that love is an action, not just a passive emotion. So if you are expressing love, feeling love is giving love, if that makes sense. Or giving love is feeling love. They're interconnected in that you can take that love, the ultimate expression of love is taking it, putting it out into the world. And the yellow of that flower helps you do it.
That's an interesting concept, how it bridges that third and fourth chakra, where it's not just a passive thing, it's more active. That's very interesting idea. The Gigantea rose that I make is also, it's golden and it's a very large flower and bright gold. One of the, nerd alert, plant nerd alert. The cool things about learning about the Chinese species is that the colors available to European plant breeders up until the roses from China were introduced, were a range of white, pink, a little bit purplish, and crimson. It wasn't until the roses, the bloodlines, essentially the stud roses, they call them, from China, were introduced and available to the breeders, that the colors of gold and orange were introduced. So all of those flowers that we see in our gardens today that are in those peachy tones, in the golden tones, those are all due to the bloodlines that came from the wild Chinese roses. So that's just kind of a nerdy sidebar that I think is, to me, is fascinating. Also,
we could have nerd alerted at the very beginning, right?
Yeah, I think probably we should put a nerd alert warning at the very beginning of the show, maybe even a badge or something. Also the aspect of remontancy, which is the reblooming qualities, are all out of the Chinese bloodlines as well. The wild Chinese roses introduced that into the plant breeders.
What was that term again? Can you repeat that?
It's remontancy, which means the rose will bloom more than just one time in the summertime. And for most gardeners, if you had a rose that bloomed only one bloom and then not the rest of the year, you'd shovel prune it because it's just not performing. But that's how it used to be until these bloodlines got introduced. So I think that's interesting.
That's really cool. I did know that some bloomed once a year and some had multiple blooms. I did not know the term. Thank you.
So put that in your pocket. It's a Scrabble word. Only your plant nerd friends will know what you mean, but you'll sound slightly cool. Have we talked enough about colors? Or do you have another color loaded up that you want to talk about?
I want to just quickly mention that I had a red rose, which was identified as the rootstock, the Dr. Huey rootstock, which is used as the base, I've learned, for so many of the hybrids that people buy at the nurseries and bring home. And over time, if you don't cut the suckers that come up, it will revert back to its original root. And actually, from an energetic standpoint, I think that is so, rose gardeners hate it. I think it's so cool from an energetic standpoint because here I have this rose that's been, neglected or not prepared or cared for properly, quote unquote. And it's, what's wrong with those roses? They're beautiful. They're a deep velvet red. They have an incredible fragrance. Why would you try to suppress that? The plant energy of this rose is telling us that, it's reminding us that we have this magnificence that we were, born with, and we can call upon that and bring that up into our heart at any time to return to our true, authentic self. So I just absolutely love that one, and I love the energy around that.
And it brings up that quality of rootedness. I think that a lot of times we think about roses and the heart, and it all seems very kind of up in the air and like kind of squishy. That's my word, squishy. But really, love is rooted. Love is grounded. Love, like you're saying, is action. Love is solid. And the roses really teach us those qualities of solid, grounded, boundaried, heart open, but you've got to have a strong foundation. And the roses are really good at teaching that. They're not wishy-washy.
Yeah.
Those quality of the thorns, it's going to teach you that, not to be wishy-washy. Roses can do amazing things. They're not delicate little creatures, and neither is your heart a delicate little creature. The petals might fall off and you might need a year to recover, but it has this restorative quality that each year has that hopefulness that good things can happen for you.
Beautiful.
I'd love to, we're talking about roses, but we have to talk about some gems for the heart as well, because there's something really in alignment about using gem essences or gem elixirs with the heart and helping to heal the heart. I think you agree with me on this.
I do agree, yes.
So clearly we have to start with rose quartz.
that's on the top of both of our lists. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a classic. The rose quartz, the way I see it, is for restructuring the heart that's been sort of beat up by life, challenged, heartbroken, all of these aspects. And rose quartz is one of the gem essences that I always use with a little bit of trepidation, is not the right word at all. But I usually mention some level of a warning or an awareness with it, because rose quartz gem essence, at least the one that I use with the Alaskan essences, it can create this sensation in your heart, like a literal sensation in your heart or heart chakra of undenting. So it feels weird, but it's part of that healing process. And so sometimes if people have had their hearts really shut down and closed off because they've been wounded, having that stirring, having that field feeling different can feel a little disturbing or scary or startling. And I usually like to let them know that they might experience that if they're taking rose quartz.
I've heard that. I've heard a personal experience of that from a colleague. But I haven't experienced it myself. So it's really interesting. And I think you're right. It may come into play more when there's a lot of that's been closed off, and it's sort of really making some structural energetic changes.
Yeah. And it's something to just, I just like to mention it to people, because I've had more than a few clients tell me that they've felt that and that they really appreciated that they were warned in advance so that they didn't think something was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that the worst thing, to have a heart opening and to think, oh my God, I'm dying here? It's like, no. This is a heart opening. It's a healing process. It's good to have some movement in there. It's salutary.
Excellent.
What other gems do you love to use?
Well, I really like the watermelon tourmaline. And that is got both the pink and green ray. So there's a lot of balance. There's balancing happening there. The bringing together of the yin and yang polarities. And I have the Alaskan essences one, but I also have my own watermelon tourmaline gems that I have the physical gem, which is just the energy of it is beautiful. And in studying the heart chakra and looking at that concept of the pink and the green, and the pink is the giving of, or the green is the giving of love, and the pink is the receiving of love. I see that energy of the pink. It's kind of like you have to love yourself before you can love others. You can't really skip that step. Bringing love into your body is what's necessary in order to truly express love in a positive, healthy way to someone else or to the world or whatever. So that watermelon, that pink and green combination, also, there's bicolored tourmalines that are not necessarily the watermelon shape, but having those two colors together is something really powerful and magical and balancing to me. So that's one that I really like to use.
Yeah, I always think of the keywords of polarity in love. The give receive, that openness, that inward and outward. And yeah, the watermelon tourmaline is incredibly helpful for that polarity as well. One of the ones that I use a lot with working with the inner child and the heartbreak of the inner child is manganocalcite. And that's another one from the Alaskan essences. It just has such a sweet, gentle energy. It's so non-challenging to the heart. I know over the years I've worked a lot with inner child work and with self-love. And for me, some of these, bigger guns like rose quartz felt a little bit overwhelming at first. And the manganocalcite felt really soothing. So it's an option for those whose heart has been quite closed to be a really gentle matrix to start that process of healing the heart.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I like the jade as well. Jadeite jade. I think it's important that it's the true jade, which has been used. Well, it's been used classically, sort of in Chinese medicine, physically, right, as the pendant that is worn over the heart, and it's very important in that case that it's touching the skin, and it creates this resonance of warmth with the skin. And maybe you can speak more about that, but I've always loved that about the jade. And it's just really calming, centering effect. I've been attracted to it since way before flower essences and always noticed that about it. So now using it as an essence is wonderful for formulas that need that calming, balancing, sort of grounded in the heart feeling. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, totally. Having that contact of jade over your heart on your skin there's just something incredibly soothing about it. I have a pendant, a carved guanyin pendant that's from jade, and that combination is just I wear it so often, and it just, the minute I put it on, I just, okay, take a breath. I can just feel that heart soothing, calming energy. And then with that energy of the goddess coming through as well, it's just, it's so perfect in every possible way. So having the gem essence as part of a formula to give you that grounded, soothing, okay in your body, it's a great addition to pretty much any formula. But certainly when you were talking about the heart, really on point.
Yeah, cool.
I would love to throw one more in that I just feel like I cannot not talk about a little bit. The whale essence from Jane Bell's Essences from Hawaii. It's a nature essence made in collaboration with the spirit of the humpback whale mama. And it has this incredible, huge, heartful energy. If the heart, the whale's heart, the heart of the whale is one of the largest hearts on the planet. They're, especially the blue whale. I think the blue whale's heart is the size of a baby elephant. It's like,
wow,
crazy big. Yeah. And so their field, if you think about when they're swimming out in the ocean, they have this heart field that just projects out so far. And the way that the mama whale helps her calf after the calf is born, she has to pick it up with her body and help it come up to the surface to breathe. And so the quality of whale is just so warm and loving, and it's love in action, like you were talking about. It's that quality of nurturing the young and helping them come up to the surface, and nurturing them along the path to independence. And this whale essence is just so much the embodiment of love from the ocean, from our whale ancestors or co-ancestors or what have you. It's such a cool essence. And anytime that there's an issue around the heart, I always think of using whale.
Oh, that is just beautiful. And there's such a mothering energy to that. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that one.
It was an imperative. Do you feel like you want to go into, you offered to share with us a beautiful meditation. Do you feel like you want to dive into that at this point?
Yeah. I think we could do that. It's a few minutes.
And we want to make sure that those listeners who are driving, perhaps not closing our eyes, but if you're not driving, you may have the opportunity to close your eyes and really get into this. But
really, this is a visualization. You don't actually need to close your eyes, except it does help with the visualizing. So it's up to you. But what it is, it's called the heart breath, and it's an exercise that is taught by Nikki Scully, who is a healer and shamanic teacher that specializes in Egyptian mysteries. And she has a book called Alchemical Healing, but it's also a core practice that she teaches in all her books and classes. And its purpose is to just quickly and powerfully bring ourselves into alignment with the earth and sky while feeding our heart with love. And then doing this alchemical visualization where we grow our heart flame and then feed our body with this universal life force or love force. So we just want to start by taking a few deep grounding breaths in and out. And just, feel your feet on the floor to make sure that you are getting that grounding feeling. And then we want to find the eternal flame that dwells in the sanctuary of our heart center. See it in our mind's eye and feed it with love. So we're going to pour love into that heart flame and feel it grow and spread warmth and light in our body. Now focus your awareness on the center of the earth and then inhale that earth energy, drawing up the power and vitality of the earth from the earth and through your body into the heart. So take an inhalation breath, bringing that earth energy up into your heart. And hold it there for a second. And while you do that, mingle the intelligence and strength of the earth with the love that you're pouring on your heart flame. And then exhale it out. And when you do that, just imagine it going into every cell of your being, radiating out from your heart center and nourishing your body with vitality and intelligence, life force energy, and love. And then we're going to do it again. So inhale, taking another strong earth breath into your heart flame. Hold it and mix it with your love. And then exhale into every cell of your being. Now keep breathing and then extend your consciousness upward through the sky toward the heart of the cosmos, the great central source and all that is. And now inhale all the blessings of the universe down through your crown and into that heart flame. Hold your breath a moment to join this cosmic intelligence with the power of earth in your heart. Let it mingle and feed your heart flame with more love. Then exhale out again, radiating all that love, that power and intelligence now from both the earth and the sky out to every cell of your being. And now with this visualization, and it might take you a few times to get the hang of it, but you're going to visualize both earth breath coming up from the earth and the sky breath coming down from the sky simultaneously to meet in your heart. So breathe in and let that both come from below and above, meet in your heart. Hold it, mix it with your heart flame, feed it with love, seeing it grow, and then exhale the life force energy out to every cell of your body. And we just want to do it a couple more times. So inhale both the earth and the sky simultaneously into the heart. Hold it and mix it with the heart flame. Feed it with love. See it grow. Exhale out to every cell of your body. And you might want to do a few more of these until you feel in alignment with the grounded power and intelligence of the earth and the exalted intelligence of the universe, of the cosmos. Let's do it one more time. Inhale, hold it and mix it. Exhale. And do you feel that centeredness and that power in your heart center that is now infused into your whole body? And when you're done and you feel complete with this exercise, just take another minute to ground yourself before going on with your day. You can do this by wiggling your toes or rubbing your feet on the ground, taking a few breaths and directing them back down through your body and toward the center of the earth. You can imagine a cord connecting your root to the earth. I like to imagine a seatbelt where I just click it and strap in for another day in the third dimension. And it can go then go about it in a completely balanced, beautiful, and strong way. So I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That was a lovely meditation. I've never experienced that particular one before. That'll be a fun thing that we can do, is to share some of these skills that we've learned over the years of doing this kind of deep soul work. I'm excited. That was really lovely. Thank you for sharing that.
Glad you liked it.
So we'll draw to a close here, and we really want to thank you for joining us in working with this topic of the heart and how flower essences can help us to heal, to grow our heart capacity, to grow greater compassion and love for ourselves and for others. So thanks for being with us. We really appreciate you, and we really appreciate you reaching out to us. We love to hear from you. We love to see your comments and respond with them on Facebook and Instagram. And we'd really be grateful if you'd share this podcast or this episode with a friend. I'm sure you know somebody who would enjoy it too. We welcome you and for the next time, and we look forward to seeing you sometime in the future out in the garden. Take good care.
Take care now. Bye-bye. You've been listening to the Flower Essence Podcast with Rakana Feld and Kathleen Aspens, and we appreciate your interest in connecting with nature on a deeper level. You can find us online at thefloweressencepodcast.com or join us on Facebook and continue the discussion.
This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. We are not physicians and do not diagnose, prescribe, or treat medical conditions. Please consult with your own physician or healthcare practitioner regarding the suggestions and recommendations made by the hosts and guests of the Flower Essence Podcast.